All right, Paul. I think we're ready to go.
All right, Tony. Well, thanks for setting this up. So what I'd like to do first is just cover a quick agenda of the things I'd like to cover in this webinar. So first, I'd like to define the mission. Then I'd like to talk a little bit about who C2P is, what we do, and how we do it. And then I have a series of slides that reinforce what C2P does and how we do it. And then we could jump into a demo, have a quick summary, and then talk about the business side of things, how to be a partner, and how to purchase C2P product. All right, so this is a rendering, a drawing that kind of symbolizes the mission. So along the perimeter are all the different verticals that we integrate with, and we'd like to be able to bring those into NX and make NX the single unified head end for reviewing any IP traffic from any of these IP devices. So that's a little bit about the mission and about C2P. C2P has been doing this for quite a while. We started in 2010 with the sole vision of developing a common integration framework that will allow any IP device to seamlessly integrate with any VMS system.
Hey, Paul, who was your first client?
Wow.
I was interested in the genesis, like how did it get started?
So I can give you a story on how it started. We were doing video recorders way back when, and we used to share space with a guy that did RFID tracking. So he and I would have lunch often, and one day he came in and said he won this big contract with several states to track computers in schools. And I said, geez, Mike, that's great, but don't you want to know who took, how these computers were lost? I guess the deal was the schools were being forced to figure out what's going on with all the computers. Why at the end of the year the inventory is so low? And so Mike got the contract to track these computers, and I said, that's great, Mike, but don't you want them back? I mean, wouldn't you want video of these events? And he said, oh, you can't do that. It's too hard. And I said, no, we're doing video recorders. We could do that. And not only did we solve the problem at the end of the year, as far as theft, there were actually more computers in the school inventory than when they started the year, because the kids were so afraid they brought them back from home. And so they had, at the end of the year, they had more inventory than they started. So that was kind of we looked at each other after that and said, you know what, we have a new business model. This is too big to pass up. So that's how we started.
Interesting. All right.
So anyway, so on the left-hand side of the page here is a sampling of the integrations we do. And so what I'm showing here is how it all works. So on the left-hand side is a representation of the integrations, and in the center here is our common database with the network server, the NX server, and the NX client being the single head end for monitoring all this. So what I'd like to do is just quickly walk through how it works with, say, one example. Let's say an NCR POS system. So we have some software that sits out at the edge. We talk to the IP appliance. We get the data from that appliance, and we normalize it at the edge, right at that point. So at the edge, all these integrations work exactly the same way. They feed the integration framework with the data based on our protocol, not what we received from the IP device. So we decouple all the nonsense that it takes to get the data from the IP device from what shows up in the framework. And
so you use like SDKs or integration toolkits from each one of the different partners, like in point of sale, banking, facial recognition, everything like that. And you basically grab the metadata that it's generating, and then you send that to NX to be used for bookmarks or pulling back related video, all that kind of stuff. Is that right?
That's exactly true. And each one has their own story, even within POS, even within NCR in POS. They each have their own interface. They're very little in common with even within the same family of products. So, but we normalize all that with what we call proxy at the edge. And so that's all taken care of. And from that point forward, we own the data, and it's in
what
our.
Are you like? Who would be a competitor to you guys?
I don't have anybody off the top of my head that does what we do. There's certainly some of the.
There's like the commercial. There's like the consumer versions of you guys, which is like the Zapiers and the IFTTs. Would that be a similar comparison?
Yeah, I haven't seen those products, but I'd have
Okay.
to look at them and see if they do what we do. I don't have any familiarity with them, but I think what we do is fairly unique, to be honest with you. I don't know anyone, for instance, that takes the data and creates a video stream and then presents that to the recorder so it can be stored time synchronous with the
Well, I
cameras.
mean, they do it based off of like transaction webhooks, kind of that stuff. So it's like it's still like an automation or I don't know, you could say an integration framework, but it's slightly different in that you guys have taken the time to create virtual cameras that actually stream into the VMS that get recorded alongside the cameras themselves. And I think the guys on the people on the webinar haven't seen it yet, but basically you're creating these virtual these RTSP streams that are presenting the data, and then you also got the data in a database that's being able to be called back if you want to do a search, right?
Exactly.
Zapier and these guys, they're just transactional, meaning like if I have something that happens in my system, I can send a command to Zapier that would then trigger another automation in another product that's connected to it. So it's not seamless as much, but it's more like exchanging information between the different systems. Zapier is cloud-based, so really you have to have some form of cloud internet connection in order to be able to utilize it. But with your solution, you install it locally, and it all just runs on the local network for the most part, right?
Yes, currently we are going to go cloud-based for our database. That's customer-driven.
Right, but I mean, like these guys are cloud-led because they're dealing with a lot of automation between websites and web services.
Right.
And you guys are like them, but you're on a local level and really aimed at just VMSs.
We're
Right?
totally focused on VMS, totally focused. Our vision is to make sure that all this stuff is available inside the client. We want it to be one single head end in the client, so you can get to all this stuff and never have to leave that one application.
All right, I'll let you keep going. I won't bother you anymore.
That's fine. That's good. So as soon as we get the data, we do two things. We write it to the database, and then we also create a camera stream that we write to the NX server, who then makes it available to the client. So anybody with a client and credentials to get in now has access to that data stream. So in the short version, I'll explain what the client looks like, but there's plenty of slides to get into it later. But on the left-hand side is the search engine, which is common to all the integrations. And then on the right-hand side are the three cameras that we have complete control over from our search engine. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll discuss this further as we get into it. This is a typical view of what the streaming text would look like coming from our proxies at the edge. All right, so let's dive into this a little bit, and I think some of this will make more sense. We'll go back to this drawing we do quite a bit. I call it the mothership. We go back to the mothership, and so this is point of sale. This is exactly what we just saw over here. Just zoomed in quite a bit so we could see what's happening. So on this side, this is your standard client, NX client. On this side is the search engine, and it has many modes. In this mode, it's a receipt mode for Verifone, a POS. So this would stream the activity in the client, as well as you can click on any line and it will bring up that specific event, the video stream. In this case, it's a virtual camera video stream of that specific event at that point in time. So it's time synchronized with the overview camera, as well as there's another virtual camera down here that we allow users to create their own procedures. So if you've ever watched security video for a while, it gets pretty boring. If you've watched text for a while, it's even more boring. So,
so the window on the left, just so these guys know, that's a browser window, correct?
Yep.
So that's enabled by the embedded browser in the NX client, desktop client. And the three on the right, the one on the top is a camera stream.
Yes.
Coming from NX.
Yes.
And the two below it are RTSP streams coming from C2P.
Yes, and really the only one that has to be there is the middle one. The one at the bottom is optional. Some folks have no need for it, and they use two overview cameras. So it's completely up to the user how they want to configure it.
So this is a layout inside of NX.
Yes, yeah, it's a 1+3.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but thanks for bringing that up. We are hosted in the web portal within NX, and that's where all this happens, is in here, our web server. We link up to it, and you have several options in this hamburger you can select as far as how you want to look at the data. So on that note, this is probably the more classic view of our search engine. What I'm showing here is there's 3 layers of search capability. It actually has many layers. You can just keep adding parameters and go as deep as you like. But you can also not put anything there, and you'll get all the transactions from that IP device. In this case, we're looking for coffee as the item. The terminal, we're looking for terminal 2. And the actual price is less than 99. It could be greater than, less than, equal to, and so on. There's a lot of operators here, and there's a lot of fields you can select from to do your search. Once you do that, you'll get a list of all the hits that match that criteria. You can select any one. You'll get the detail, and once you get the detail, you can hit show, and it'll bring back the video at that point in time. So you could play it backwards, forwards, export as evidence, so on and so forth. All right, so that's the basic search engine and POS. We also do some custom work for POS. A lot of times with larger applications, they have their own idea of how they want the data presented. So I'll just cover this quickly, but essentially it's a large organization with lots of sites. They want to be able to audit these individual sites from remote locations so that the auditors can be in one place and the store managers can be in another. This here, the blue, green, and red is a metric that measures how well the manager is reviewing these things. So it's kind of watching the watcher. The auditors can make sure that the manager is actually doing their job. This is a suspicious activity that's ripe for different types of things to happen, abuse. So they define these things, not us. And so what happens is you get a list for each operator of how many times they've had these particular events, and then you could look for abnormality situations or whatever. Each time you evaluate one of these, the percentage changes here. So if it were 100%, that means you looked at every single one of these things and evaluated that it was either a theft or a non-issue. So in this case, we're just going to jump to the end of the story here and say, okay, down here, this looks very suspicious. 153 beverage comps. Sounds like
and 27 refunds.
Yeah, it's a sweetheart deal. So let's drill down on that just a little bit and say, okay, there's another view here we could look at, and it brings it out even further. The graphical is kind of a nice way to look at it from a distance. You can spot what's going on. So total exceptions, you can see the beverage comps are way out of whack compared to the rest of the exceptions. And you could also see operator 102 is certainly got the lion's share of exceptions by operator. So each one of these things is hyperlinked to the data behind it. So if I click on this in the system, it'll bring me to that specific beverage comp situation. In this case, we're looking at this particular transaction. And once you do that, you get the details. In auditing, you also have the ability to audit. So you can edit that and it gives you a drop down. You could select a theft, a valid training issue, and several others. And so you've now dog tagged that with a certain characteristic. You could also choose to escalate it so that if you want the supervisor, the auditor, the loss prevention person to review it, you can flag it that way, and also add a comment that may be unique to a series of events you're looking at, and you can then just list those later on when you're following up on your investigation.
So which point of sale system is this one?
StorePoint. This is StorePoint.
Which is NCI or?
NCR, yes.
NCR.
Yep. Yeah, they have a ton of fields in this one. All right, so that's basically POS. I'm just going to go through these rather quickly. Facial recognition. Again, the same look and feel. It's the unified head-end approach. So in here, you would select, behind this is search type. You would select what you're looking for. In this case, it's facial recognition. You could add some parameters to search on, pick a day, whatever. Once you select one of these, you'll get the details of that specific event. This one happens to have GPS coordinates. So we allow you to go a little deeper once you have GPS coordinates. In the hamburger over here, you could select the real-time event map, and it'll show you the events that have triggered. This underscore T is key for the facial recognition as a trigger point. And so it was picked and put on this map. You could select that pin. It automatically puts the pin there. You could select it. You could hit cameras. It'll give you the canned cameras of that event. Or given the GPS coordinates, we calculate the closest cameras to that event. So you can click on them. It'll show you the view from that closest camera. So you can see where the person was before possibly and where they went afterwards. So without having to go into your VMS system and navigate around to try to figure out where the closest cameras are, you've got a list right here automatically you can select. So on facial, we actually take it a little bit deeper too. We take advantage of the power of the generic event feature within NX, and we provide a tracking feature. So as this person moves through the building, he comes in the front entrance, this JPEG comes up, and we do that based upon the location. We know what map to put up, as well as, and very important, is the putting up what you're looking at. A lot of times these things pop up in your face. You have no idea why they're popping up. So we annotate that with why you're looking at this. We give you the map, we show you what the incident is, and we give you this one camera. Within the generic events, you could have several, but for this demo, we have one. So what I'm going to do is quickly go through this. We can see how the person moves through the building as we do this. He's now over here. He's picked up by a different facial recognition camera. We have the overview camera of the area, and again, a description of where he is. And same holds true here as he moves to this location, and so on. So that's facial recognition.
Just a quick question about that. Which facial recognition engine was that?
That's Cyber Extruder.
Cyber Extruder. Okay.
Yeah. Aurora 3D is what they call their software package.
So, but if you guys did additional face rec solutions, it would work the same way? Exactly
the same way. Yeah. No, by design, they have to work the same way. They have all the same features. So even if here's a good example. So we'll go to LPR. LPR and facial are extremely similar in how they work. They both use a camera and they both provide us with the metadata. So it's exactly the same look and feel, whether it's license plates or another facial interface to us. So it's I'm not going to review this. We've done it a few times, but this is the detail of that event. It comes up. We can do the exact same thing with tracking here. So right now the vehicle is at this location. You have what you're looking at in the overview. And so the tools work exactly the same, whether it's facial recognition or whether we're doing license plates. They all work exactly the same. We get into access control. Again, same look and feel. Everything's unified head end, and you get your details. In this case, with the access control systems, we generally will get the face that's associated with that badge. So you can do a visual verification of that person matching the face on that badge, so that you can catch some any activity that way. Let's see, we did the access control tracking. So barcode tracking, exactly the same way. In this case, we're looking for recalls of a particular item. We have a list of recalls. We click on any one of these, you hit show, it brings you right to that event. You can play the video forward, backwards, do your export, whatever you need to do. It's exactly the same look and feel. Man down is another RFID tracking application. Very popular with prisons. Anywhere we were in a hazardous area, it's a body-worn active RFID device that has some inputs that the guard could activate. And once he does, without us, they get some kind of text at the command center. With us, they get immediately a pop-up video with everything that's going on, where the incident happened, description of what it is, the closest overview camera, and so on. So they usually have quite a few RFID readers. As a matter of fact, they asked us to do a special for them, which we do quite a bit. They also use the RFID readers, the tags, for door monitoring. So it's not an access control system. They're just looking for open or shut kind of stuff, and as an alert. So we added that to their system, and this is the LPAS RFID tracking system. So it gives you a map where that door is, shows you why you're looking at this, and then any camera of that area. So there's a theme here. They're all kind of working the same way. Weigh stations. This could be a big truck on a scale, or it could be meat on in your deli counter, or it could be a cannabis facility where they're moving material through and they want to have weights and measures along the way. So I use the analogy, if you've ever gotten a ticket for running a red light or running a stop sign, like I did, you get in the mail, you'll get one of these. It shows a picture of your car, with you in it, and your ticket, and why you're there. It gives you a complete summary, and it's exactly what we do. So if there's any discrepancy on the weights and measures, you can very quickly go back and add any parameter you want to bring up that exact event and export as evidence or do whatever you want with it. GPS events. GPS events is a whole new world. Once you get past just integrating with data in general, once you get to GPS, it's completely different because there's no anchor point. By anchor point, I mean the way in our world, when we get a piece of data from a device, we need to know what that device is so we could assign cameras to it, so we can anchor the cameras to it for playback. With GPS, with gunshots, it's just a sound in space. There is no anchor point. It could be anywhere. So what we do there is we take the GPS coordinates and we use them in a map to be able to locate where that event is. And again, do the same thing we talked about with facial recognition. You can select the cameras, it'll show you the standard view, or you can do the closest GPS coordinates, closest camera using the GPS coordinates to that specific event. So that's pretty nice. In this case, we're actually showing a two-factor integration where we bring up the license plate of the car and the gunshot detection. As it turns out, in the investigations with gunshots, knowing what cars are in the area is pretty important. So we can make that search pretty easy for those that are looking for it because all the data is in the same database. All right. Thermal cameras. Thermal cameras work very similar to the gunshot in that we just get GPS coordinates in space. We don't know what happened. We just get the coordinates. And so from there, we can use the same methodology with the closest camera and so on, and bring up the overview cameras. In this case, it's a confirmation camera. The thermal camera is a little tough to see, where this camera is more human readable. And we also give you the cameras closest. So again, you could see where that person was and why you're looking at them is spelled out here in the procedure. GPS, we already covered that with facial tracking, but because it's GPS, it's in the list. And then lastly, multi-factor. So multi-factor is really where we're at now, and that's kind of the next generation. And so here, in this case, we're really starting to tie together different devices to solve problems. So for this particular application, we have a product we call our enrollment connector. So what it does is it takes this license plate as soon as we get it and checks to see if we've already assigned it a WIGIN credential. If not, we do. And then we submit that into the access control system for them to evaluate and determine whether or not that vehicle is allowed to pass through that gate. So the access control system owns that decision. We're not making the decision ourselves at the edge like a lot of systems do. We're pushing it back onto the access control system where it belongs and let them open the gate. So we can either enroll the plates ourselves, or we can batch enroll them if the access control system already has plates and credentials already defined.
And how many access control systems you guys integrated with right now?
Actually, I'm stressing to find out how many we're not integrated with, because the way it works is we do WIGIN, and WIGIN 26 is the basics for just about every access control system I'm aware of. So I'm not aware of any that we're not compatible with. And we do several versions of WIGIN, WIGIN 26, 30, 34, 36, 38, whatever. So whatever the access control systems use as far as their version of WIGIN, we're compatible with. And by default, they all use 26. That's just the basic original format. But and so in this case, we're integrated with Access A1001 bidirectionally, so we get the information back. So we send in the WIGIN information, and we get the fact of whether that car was granted or denied. access to that gate. And we even get, if it was granted and that gate didn't open, we even get those messages. So basically everything you would normally get with an access control message also applies to gates and license plates. And by the way, we can do this with faces, we can do it with RFID tags. It doesn't matter. That the mechanism works exactly the same, whether it's license plates or faces or RFID tags. Point of sale, the application here probably is casinos. They're the ones most interested in what their patrons are doing. It's also helpful for sales and marketing. If you do a sales and marketing campaign, you'd like to know what new license plates showed up as a result of that campaign. And so that's a good way to spread the cost of a new system, is to get the sales and marketing guys to see the benefit of being able to do some analysis on the bang for buck for doing their sales and marketing campaigns. Let's see, ATM, anytime you're dealing with money, there's always scams. I mean, it's guaranteed. So one of the things they like to do is tie the license plate in with the ATM machines. So one, they could reconcile who's taking the money out in the family with the card, and two, if there's people have stolen cards and they've got all kinds of scams they can do at the ATM machine. So it's nice to have the transactions and the license plates synced up together. Gunshots and LPR we already covered. We can do that based on the GPS coordinates. We know the road and we also know the time. And so we can pull up the license plates that were in that area. And then gunshot and LPR on the maps, same general idea. And that's about it for the slideshow. Any questions we want to? I know I went through that quick, but I just wanted to cover the whole picture.
I don't see any questions coming in yet. So,
okay.
Regarding access control and ANPR, do you have a weak interface board? Yeah,
so we use a store-bought board ourselves. So we don't manufacture any, but we have a couple that we use.
Does that answer your question, Yuri? So you guys, just a follow-up question, that you guys will supply that board when it's needed?
We can, or we could bundle it, or we can give them the distributor and then they can get it directly. It doesn't matter. It's hardware. There's not much margin on that, so we just don't pass it through. But if they prefer we buy it, we can do it.
All right. All right. So you want to jump into the real demo?
Yeah, or do you want to cover the highlights, or you want to wait till after?
Oh, hey, keep going. Yeah, sorry. There's one more question that came in. Said from Terrence. Says that he's been looking at LPR solutions. If they decided to integrate with access control, are there separate licenses, or is a single license for C2P?
Yeah, so there's always separate licenses. Each time we interface to something new, there's a license associated with that. That allows us to have a cost-effective low end and scale with the project as it gets larger. So it's kind of like selling camera licenses. It's extremely similar to selling camera licenses.
So basically, each different thing that you integrate with has a license.
Yep. Anything that puts out data that you want to see come up in a virtual camera needs a license. Yes.
And then are the licenses like just a one-time license for that system? I mean, how's the license work?
Currently, we do a one-time fee for that. We are going to be moving to a cloud-based arrangement, so that'll be more of a subscription when that happens.
And if we haven't covered this yet, but I'm sure it'll come up. But let's say that there's a integration that someone wants, but it doesn't exist yet. What's the process for that?
So the first thing we like to do is hear the business case because we don't want to get stuck, with something that doesn't fly. But after that, the way it generally works is we just need to talk with someone that is familiar with the SDK. So let's say it's a new access control system. We'd want to talk to the person in that SDK group to have a conversation before we start. some folks are not really good with their SDKs. They don't update them. And we've been down the road before where we do an entire integration only to find out at the end that that part of the SDK has not been supported in years. So we know we don't start one now until we have that discussion. Once we have that discussion, then we jump into it. There has to be a business case, though.
Yeah. So so then it's basically based off of like the viability of the integration, and then I assume there's a fee associated with it if you guys decide that it is something you can do.
Yeah, so the fee kind of scales. It depends on the opportunity, but there's a baseline fee, and it can go north or south of that number. It just depends on how we see that opportunity fitting into our business case, business plan, and how big the opportunity is going to be when it's done.
But you guys are open to new integrations. It's just a conversation.
Absolutely, that's our business. Happy to do them.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No problem. So anyway, just in review here, the benefits. So the single head end is the key as we see it. Is the single head end to be able to do all these things from within the NX client is the goal. And that was the original mission that we talked about earlier. We normalize everything. I don't need to go through this. We saw it a bunch of times, but a couple of key points. This type of an integration adds value to the customers' existing investments in security cameras and so on, in their sensors. Let's say they have license plate recognition, but it's not tightly tied into their video management system. Boy, what a waste that is, because license plate recognition just gives you a picture of a plate. Good luck. Once you have it tied into the VMS system, you can then follow that vehicle, where it went, where it came from, and so on. See how many vehicles are around it, who was in it. You could do some analysis on the whole thing based on having it in the VMS. So that's a value add for the customer for sure. And then also it future proofs their investment a little bit in the VMS, and then because they feel good about being able to expand their IP attachments to that particular device, to the VMS system. Visual verification, we beat that to death. It's just having metadata is great, but it's a little lacking in detail. Once you have the video of the event, it's pretty much game, set, match. You're no longer talking about it wasn't me. It's now please don't prosecute. So it puts an end to that conversation real quick once you have video assigned to that text. Multi-level search, that's pretty obvious. Just get you right down to where you want to be in your search criteria for whatever metadata event you're looking for. And then customized services, it's right here. We are often asked for customizing our user interface, or adding new integrations or combining integrations. We're sitting on all that data, and the framework is built for that. So we definitely do it, given there's a business case. And basically, if it's not on the menu, we'll make it for you. The other thing I just want to throw in here is a benefit to the integrators and the resellers, in that it's a single unified head end, so they don't have to learn a whole lot of different things to have a lot deeper bench of products they can bid with. So a lot of times these RFQs come out and they say, well, if you don't have this POS system, you need not apply, because that's mission critical to this RFQ. So having that gives you the ability to bid on things you weren't able to bid before, as well as having the camera licenses tied to the sensors. It just makes the opportunity bigger once it gets rolled up, having the integrations all together. So there's big benefits for the customer as well as the integrators and the resellers. Is it demo time?
Demo time. This is one of those, I mean, your system is one of those systems that when you see screenshots, like you kind of get it, but once you see it working in the actual client, then you really get it. So
sure, that's fine. So in this case, we're looking at StorePoint. StorePoint is one of the POS systems. And so this is a list of events that were pre-recorded here, and so we can collect on any one of these guys. It happens to be this one. I'll pick a different one.
Hey, Paul, real fast, can you pull the tree out on the left for the resource tree?
Oh, sure.
To show everybody this is the full client that they're looking at. Yeah, and then on the right, can you pull out the notifications?
Sure.
So here you go, guys. This is the full Network Optix desktop client. and you can see that the gray window there is the browser, and then the 3 cameras next to it are the C2P cameras that are coming in. So those are the emulated RTSP, or let's say RTSP streams coming from you guys with transaction data and then related cameras, right?
Yep, that's it.
So everything below that on the left, you see that HTTP 192.168.1.16 port 89. This is all being generated by C2P, right?
Yeah, these are all virtual cameras. This is why I needed a 16 camera license yesterday. Yeah.
So these are all virtual cameras, and basically anything that's set up in your system as a virtual camera can then be pulled into a layout just like a normal camera.
Exactly. No difference.
So you can mix and match it with different layouts if you want to.
Yeah.
Like, this is your standard kind of interface that you're showing, because this is the typical way that operators would use the software, but they can customize how this looks in their layout.
Yeah, so they could customize it, and then it'll snap to once you do a search. So if I go like this and then I do a search, it snaps back to where it needs to be. So they could have a live view up with a lot of different screens, and then if they want to do a search, it automatically sets itself back up.
Yeah. So one thing too, to set this thing up, right? Right now you install the C2P software on your machine. C2P is Windows based.
Yes.
The Windows environment for C2P. And then once you set it up, then you have to go in and configure the different modules that you'll be using to bring in the transactions from your integrated systems, right? Which is basically your licenses.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. So each device is an anchor point. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, it's helpful to see that these are your standard cameras that are set up here, and you just drag them in.
All right, you can go. You can get rid of those. I just wanted everybody to see this. This is the standard client.
Yeah, no, good point. So let's say we want to do a beverage comp. We could look at that. What I'd like to show is the ease of use of going between these guys. So let's say we want to go to, I don't know, let's go to license plates. So all I did was, and normally a customer wouldn't see this. It's just because I have everything loaded. They would only have the particular IP devices they care about, right? So it wouldn't be as busy as that. But right now it's busy because I have everything loaded in here, in case anybody had a question on any specific thing. So this gives you a list of all the plates. I haven't set up any filters, so it's going to give me all the plates that came in on the different lanes. I could select one, do the show, and it brings up that particular event at that point in time. So that's how it works. You can export it and do whatever you need to do at that point. And also you could, because it's hooked up through NX, all the cameras now are time synchronized to that. So I could bring other cameras in at that point in time and maybe follow that vehicle up a couple exits, see where they got off, where they got on, so on and so forth. It's by adding these IP appliances and then bringing them into the VMS, the end result is so much greater than the sum of the parts. It's huge, being able to utilize the both of them in concert. And then any plate you want to see, bingo, you got it. Then the customer or the integrator or whoever can quickly just move over to another integration, and they all work exactly the same way.
What was the license plate integration you were showing?
What's that? I was PlateSmart.
PlateSmart. And you just switched over to another one right now, which is which one?
This is Cyber Extruder. This is facial recognition.
Gotcha. So you can snap between the different integrations you have.
Yeah, very quickly. Very quickly you can do that. If
you can also create individual layouts for the different integrations?
Sure. Well, I guess it doesn't really make too much sense to do that, because it'll find once you have your selection here and you do a search, it's automatically going to set itself up. I mean, you could do that.
No, I'm thinking as an administrator, if you have one guy that's going to be watching face rec and another guy or another operator is going to be watching the parking and cars coming in, you could basically set up different layouts for them as their default layout.
Yeah, they could set it up so that it comes back in facial recognition mode,
Mm-hmm.
if that's what they're looking for. And you also could set different permissions up too, so who can do what.
There was a question about the licensing, like how does C2P, is it now treated as an encoder or as an individual licenses?
So, the licensing for the virtual cameras?
Yeah, for network optics.
Yeah, right now I believe they're individual cameras. It would be really great if they were treated as encoders, but I don't know if that's the case.
I believe right now it's still individual licenses as well, but I mean that's not a huge deal. If you guys have a project out there, just talk to our sales team about what you're trying to do, and we can accommodate you.
Yeah, that would be awesome because that comes up obviously all the time, whether they need to be a separate license or not.
Yeah, I don't see any issue with it being an encoder license, honestly. But,
yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
All right. And there's another question was, how would you, are there any plans to get on Ubuntu?
Yeah, I don't think that's happening anytime soon. No, the search engine probably could be, but the rest of this, I don't think so.
But if you've got it set up in a Windows environment and you're using an Ubuntu client, then you'll be able to pull these layouts from that Windows machine you have set up anyways. You just need one Windows machine in the system. Is that right?
I haven't tried it, but I believe that would be the case.
Yeah, I believe that's the case as well because different operators have different clients. So Terrence, you basically need one Windows environment, which you could even probably set up in a virtual environment on Ubuntu if you're all Ubuntu. So that should allow you to get this set up primarily on an Ubuntu hardware base.
Yeah, because the client is hosted in the search engine is hosted in the client, and then these are just camera views. So we're going to request them from you guys the same way.
Yep.
So is there any specific areas they'd like to see a demo of? Right now, I'm in
guys, anybody want to see a specific type of demo? Point of sale. We've gone over the facial rec, the mapping. There's really a lot of different things you can do.
Yeah, so it goes quite deep. So I touched on this during the slides, but you can get details of any one of these things. Everything's hyperlinked together. So if you wanted to get off to the bev comps or whoever, if you want to focus on this particular individual Terminal 1.
Let's look at the retail, the point of sale stuff, because I know that point of sale is something that a lot of people are looking at. So NCR is what, the largest point of sale, or are they one of the largest?
I believe they're one of the largest. I don't know if they're the largest, but they're certainly large. They've got plenty of different versions of POS out there. We handle a few of them, but there's probably even more than what we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's a bunch of POS. Let's go over to the search side. Take a look what we got for POSs.
So there's a couple of questions that came in. Number one is from Yuri. Do you always write integrations with bidirectional communications in events?
Not always. No, not always.
Depends on the requirement.
Yeah, like POS wouldn't make sense, but access control, it comes up quite a bit.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, POS, what are you going to do? Send video back to the point of sale system? I mean,
yeah,
it really doesn't do that. But I mean, I guess some more of the modern ones would. Can you create alerts and notifications when items are purchased?
Sure, absolutely. The user can define the rules, just like they defined a rule here for this particular event. You could also define a rule that sends a generic event into network Optix.
How would you do that? Which interface would you use for that?
So that would be done in the actual GUI itself for the device. So if I could bring one up here, I'll find one. Let's try PlateSmart. So this is a very, very typical GUI. They all, just like everything else in the framework, they all look very similar. So here is the anchor point. This is the actual camera name for that license plate recognition system. In this case, they're all using the same camera. You'd never want to do this in reality, but because I'm running on a simulator, I can do that. They won't step on each other. And so those are the two things you'd set up. You could edit that. So the lane, once you assign it, you can't really make any changes to it. It's virtual camera. You can pick which virtual camera you want to use. And here's where you select your overview camera. So this is overview 1, camera 2, procedure, overview 1, camera 2, procedure. I could put anything I want in there to be the overview. And this is what shows up in browse mode. So when I hit show cameras, it's going to pull this out of the database. So any data that comes in from lane 1, it's going to also store the camera names for lane 1. So anytime I do a search and it involves lane 1, it knows what cameras to bring up because we assigned them right here. This is the anchor point I talked about in the slideshow.
Yep.
That we don't have with gunshots. So this is anchored to that particular camera. And it would look, if I went to a facial recognition, this would look almost identical to the other. So again, it's the same theme, keep it all the same.
But you don't necessarily have to use this view. This is more of an audit search view if you want to see everything all in one layout, right? If you went in and you set up generic events for something and then you just use the generic events to jump between the cameras as you want to view them, right? Then operators wouldn't necessarily need to have the C2P interface up in order to be able to receive events for like a specific camera because you guys send over a generic event.
Sure.
This occurred, right?
Sure. So that would be here. This is where the generic events are defined. You could also generate these procedures. This is where they're defined, right here. And then this is the expression that gets evaluated to determine if we're going to send that generic event into network Optix. So in this case, the plate tag was this number, and the name contains a 1. In other words, lane 1. And so that was evaluated to be true. Then the entire event would be sent to network Optix as a generic event, not just this. Everything we received, we would send to the network Optix as a generic event.
You could set it up so that every single plate gets sent as a generic event if you wanted to.
You could, but we've seen in the past, sometimes that doesn't work out right. I think we overrun that interface. But here's where you have it here. Is it show all events? I thought it was send all events. Maybe it's show all events. Show all events is on, yeah. So if you uncheck that, it will only send the generic events.
Gotcha.
So and that sometimes is all you care about is you want to see the exceptions, and so that's what that's good for. So that's where that's done, and that's the rules engine. That's where you define your procedures. That's where you also assign your generic events. Alrighty, so that's pretty much it. And the beauty of our system is there's a log file on every listening interface right at the wire, so that we know exactly what's coming in when it hits here. So when you're in the debug cycle and you just did an install and the person on the other side, say NCR, says, yep, we're sending data, and this side says, nope, we're not getting it. You've got a couple options there. You can run our simulators. Everything we do has a simulator. So you see the simulator button here? It'll bring up a simulator for PlateSmart, and it actually injects true PlateSmart data into the stream at the listener so that we can prove out our entire system works before we even turn on PlateSmart. So that narrows down the blame game at the end when it doesn't, when they turn their end on and we're not getting data. We could say, well, geez, we seem to be working fine here, and our listener is showing nothing showing up at the front door. So can you check your firewalls? Could you make sure you verify you actually are sending the right IP address, yada, yada. And that really works out nice for fault isolation. That's a powerful tool. From those of us that have to debug this stuff, we made sure that kind of stuff is in there.
Do you have the list of all the integrations that you guys currently support?
Yeah, so if they send an email to sales@c2p.com, we could set them up.
I was wondering if you could read off a list for these guys so they could see, I mean, the number of systems you guys have already.
Well, I've got a list here of, this is our simulator that I use for demos. This is not
There
a
you go.
all-inclusive list, but it's a pretty good list to give you an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, so for access control, you guys in your default list have ASAP, Bloy, Access A1, 1001, Blue Access, DMP, Identicard, ISONAS, Carry RBH, a tailgating detector. I think is that generic?
Yeah, it's just a special project we did for a group.
Yeah, and ZK Access under asset tracking, iWay, DHL, Pass, RFID. I don't know, MFG, sewer barcode. And then banking, you've got ATM, bank teller, and Diebold ATM. What's the difference between ATM and Diebold ATM?
ATM is our flavor of ATM. It's generic. So if we're doing a demo for NCR, we can just run our ATM demo and not have to run our Diebold demo.
So biometrics is RES, 3D, and FST, and license plate. You got quite a few.
Yeah, there's
point of sale. For me, like just in general, point of sale is one of those things that they're kind of older technology. A lot of them, from my experience.
Yeah.
So this is pretty valuable to be able to integrate with all those different POS solutions.
So these are pretty. Some of these are pretty modern. I don't want to.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of them in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the modern POSs I see out there, like the Square and the Stripe payment stuff, you know, the online cloud-based stuff nowadays. And then for analytics, you guys got Halo, IronYun, Shot Spoiler, and SiteLogix.
Yep. SiteLogix is thermal camera. Shot spotters are gunshot detection. Halo, it has to deal with sensors of gases. Very popular for vaping.
Yeah, vaping.
School and vaping.
So, yeah, they're integrated with us as well. So
yeah,
it's a pretty comprehensive list, guys, of stuff that's out there. So
yeah, there's a deep bench of things behind this that are in the works. So that's why I don't want to say this is the complete list. If they want a complete list, just shoot over an email to sales@c2p.com.
This you're showing right here is a demo wizard that if they wanted to demonstrate the software to the customer before they purchase it, they would basically download your software, install it, and then activate the demo wizard. The demo wizard is just emulating all the transactions that are coming from these different systems.
Right. That's exactly what it does.
So you can show how the system works to your customers, guys, by just pulling it up and starting the demo wizard. So if a customer has a question about what's this going to look like, you could do a full demo with the demo wizard, which is nice.
And we do a lot of demos. So if before they get comfortable with it, they want us to get involved with the demo, that's certainly possible too.
Yeah, Alejandro, contact information for Paul will be at the end of the presentation here, and then all the works for the next webinars are going up on YouTube and our my.networkoptix.com, and there'll be contact information and the presentations there as well.
All right, sounds good. Do we want to jump into the PowerPoint again, or is there any questions or anything else we want to drill down on here?
Any more questions out there, guys? I don't see any coming in. I think you can jump back to the PowerPoint so they can see your contact info.
So this is the wrap up. So these are the verticals that we service. We didn't talk too much about Wonderware. It has to do a lot with prisons, PLC controllers. We get involved with quite a bit. Basically, any IP-enabled sensor. If there's a business case, we could integrate it. That's pretty much the story I go with, and I haven't been embarrassed by it yet, so I still say it. How to purchase? We primarily sell through integrators, dealers, and resellers. That's really the best for us. And so if anybody's interested in becoming a reseller, that's fine. It's just email sales@c2p.com. And right now we're just starting up with Network Optix, so we don't have a deep bench of sales partners yet. So we're looking for some. And And this is a good contact info down below.
All right. Well, we got 3 minutes left in the hour if anybody wants to ask any additional questions. And if not, that's fine as well. It's an early morning webinar. It's one of my third day in a row. Actually, it was wrong, Paul. I thought today was Thursday. Today is Wednesday. I got 2 more days.
It's only the third Monday this week.
Yeah, it's like right now with the coronavirus, it's every day is like the same day, pretty much, even on the weekends. So,
exactly.
How's it going? I mean, you're in where are you located?
In Connecticut.
Connecticut. How's it going over there right now?
Yeah, we're kind of like in ground zero. We're in Fairfield County. So yeah, it's pretty nasty.
Staying safe.
Yeah, it's fine though. I mean, in our business, I can work remotely. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, a lot of us have that ability because we work in software, which is nice.
Yep.
It's a bit of a wild time right now. Something.
Oh, it's brutal.
Something that I think nobody could really understand what it was going to be like until it happened, basically.
Yeah, it's something you see on movies, but you never think will actually happen.
I mean, it's a challenge, right? And I think it's not terrible for the security industry because of the fact that that it just involves a lot of contact tracing and a lot of following people and information and grouping it together to find out, if there is a case that's been developed, and then to help you find out the people that might be affected faster. So I think for the security industry as a whole, it's not going to be that detrimental. Not a great thing that's the case, but at the same time, our industry can add value to the situation. Terrence asked a question: do you have any current DoD military customers using C2P? And if so, what integrations are they using?
Yeah, I probably can't talk about that one, but yes. Yes, the answer is yes, but no.
The answer is yes.
I'd rather not get involved with that conversation.
So if someone has a question like that, the best thing to do is basically talk to you offline, and you guys can point them towards like the kind of common. Necessarily. You're like us. We can't discuss some customers that are out there just because of the nature of what they do. So.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be good.
Actually, all right. Any more questions? If not, it's 8:30 a.m., so that's our hour.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar. We appreciate it. And this webinar will be up online shortly. And if you have any questions about C2P, make sure to reach out to Paul and the team over there. It's a powerful integration suite. So there's a lot you can do with it. Especially if you're working with some of these point of sale solutions and everything that have already been integrated. It's a real quick way to add a lot of significant value to a Powered by NX product in terms of integrating the different information together. And I think Paul's been working with us for like 2 years?
I think it's about 2 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, because there were a lot of challenges surrounding like the browser. I mean, since you guys are on the call, our 4.1 beta is coming out today, actually. And part of that beta is we have a new Chromium browser that's embedded in the desktop client. So it supports a lot of new features in the web environment, including like downloading files. And a lot of those things were implemented in coordination with C2P because they needed that extra functionality in the browser environment because of the way their solution works. So C2P has been a valuable development partner for us so far, and we look forward to continuing to go down that path.
Yeah, 4.0 was big for us. That was a huge benefit for us. I'm looking forward to 4.1.
Absolutely, and just to be clear, I mean this integration works the same with all Powered by NX products. So if you're using NX Witness, if you're using a Digital Watchdog Spectrum, or any one of our other Powered by NX partners in North America, the solution is going to work exactly the same, right? So you don't need to worry about compatibility with the different product lines. So, all right.
Well, thank you, Tony, for putting this
And thank
together.
you, Paul.
Appreciate it.
Stay safe over there.
All
And
right.
thank you, everybody. We'll hopefully see you at the next webinar. Adil Abdul Karim, the webinar is going to be on the Network Optics YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube, I sent you that link earlier, I think, about the fish ID warping. You can go to YouTube and search for Network Optics, and you'll see under our webinars playlist, or works with the next webinar playlist. This webinar will be up there. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good Wednesday. Stay safe.
All right. We'll see you.
Bye, guys.